Oak Tree, then you co-founded the Global Poverty Project.
Yes.
What does it do?
The Global Poverty Project is a campaigning and educational organisation that is focused on activating large movements of people to end extreme poverty. So we're not a traditional charity that raises money and sends it to Africa. That's not what we do. We build big movements. So last year we ran the End of Polio campaign, and we convinced the Australian, Nigerian, Canadian governments to contribute an additional $118 million for polio. So we focus on how we build campaigns to get large-scale governments mobilized, as opposed to just, you and I raising $20 here and there. This is large-scale funds that we can actually use to put to good purposes. And so we focus very much on how do we build civil society movements that are strong enough to show governments that, in fact, society cares about making a difference and wants to contribute. So we do have a bit of a policy public engagement focus. We have a policy team, and our policy team focus on what's best practice in the area of ending extreme poverty. And then say if we know that polio eradication is something we can win in the next 4 years, then we go out and we say, well, what governments do we need to work on to get them all aligned to end polio? Okay. And how does that work in partnership with civil society? Do you know what I mean? So one other role we play is where we work in partnership with a whole lot of other different charitable organizations. So we're kind of like an umbrella organization for Rotary, UNICEF, World Vision, UN Foundation, etc. We work in partnership with a whole bunch of these organizations around the world in different. We have operations in the US, UK, Australia and New Zealand, growing office in Canada this year. But really it's all about campaigning and getting governments to do what they should be doing anyway.
I went into your website, and what I saw is the 1.4 billion reasons presentation. Can you please tell us about it?
1.4 billion reasons is an amazing presentation that in an hour provides you with a snapshot of the end of extreme poverty. We ask ourselves 5 key questions. What is extreme poverty? We ask ourselves, what can you do to end it? We ask ourselves, what are the barriers to ending extreme poverty that need to be overcome? And then we ask ourselves, what can we do to take action? And then finally, we actually invite people with specific actions they can take. So we follow this narrative over the course of an hour that allows people to go, oh, okay, I'm passionate about the empowerment of women, so what can I actually do? And then in the hour, we give people a snapshot. And we've taken this presentation. We want to do for global poverty what Al Gore did for climate change, in that he created an inconvenient truth. He took it all around the world. So we've been working with Bill Gates to train up thousands of presenters now around the world to be able to deliver this presentation tens of thousands of times. We've spoken to 110,000 people around the world with the presentation now, and it's growing every single day.
Does it work?
Yeah, it does work. I mean, that's the whole way in which we first get people involved in the movement. It's one of the primary tools that we use to get people involved in the movement, and it's very convincing because we worked with the world's leading economists, Jeffrey Sachs, Paul Collier, Sakiko Fukuda-Pa. We worked with an incredible group of economists who, backed up the data behind 1.4 billion reasons to ensure that it was robust, so that we have the best, most cutting-edge research, but also know exactly what we're talking about and have presenters who can actually deliver that. So we train up presenters, spend hours and hours training to be, and it works so well. College campus students, they see it and they're like, wow, how can I take action? It's immediate response. And then they go on what we call a commitment journey, which is a journey of deeper and deeper actions. So if I said to you, how do you want to end polio? You might think, okay, I want to make a donation. But then what else could you do? Maybe you could share it with your social network. Maybe you could read a book about it. Maybe you could get your friends and family involved until one day you could actually be on the front line organizing these issues. We see that people need to go on a journey of action, and this is the first step.
Another interesting campaign is the Live Below the Line program.
Yeah.
What do participants do?
Live Below the Line is a campaign where we encourage participants around the world to live on $1.25 per day in food for 5 days. And the purpose of the campaign is to give people a tiny, tiny snapshot into what life is like for the bottom billion. And we know we'll never really know what it's like to live in extreme poverty. But we use this campaign to raise awareness, but also to raise crucial funds to support projects, health and educational projects across the developing world. So funds from last year's Live Below the Line built schools in Papua New Guinea and Cambodia, for example. And this year's Live Below the Line is supporting educational and health projects all around the world. So it's now become a global movement. This year there'll be about 15,000 people living below the line this week, which is very exciting. And we predict it will raise between $2 and $3 million this year for projects around the world.
How do you come up with all of these ideas? Very interesting.
I just think our team is creative. You know, part of our role is to. I think young people naturally are looking for new ways to tackle old problems. You know, we're not set that it has to be done a certain way, and so our team is very creative and uses their creativity hopefully to make a difference. So I wouldn't count on the fact that they're not all my ideas. Like
you and your team.
Live Below the Line was started by one of our volunteers in Melbourne who he always heard people talking about $1.25 a day is what extreme poverty is. Like, what does that really mean? You know, like it's like how could you actually live on that? And so he tried to do it actually. He lived for 30 days on $1.25 and he got really sick. And he's like, well, I mean, not surprising, obviously. You know what I mean? But he thought, okay, so he actually had a better taste on this, and then he challenged all his friends to do the same. All of a sudden, it built a movement. Do you know what I mean? These things don't happen always by the design of a small group of people. It's often very organic. Yeah.
And you have Hugh Jackman as your PR person and your advisor as well.
He's on our advisory board. Yeah, he's been actively involved. He's not involved just as a celebrity. You know what I mean? He's actively involved. He comes to the board meetings. He shares his insights and wisdom. Hugh Jackman is a phenomenal man, just a real champion, has been an amazing supporter of the Global Poverty Project for so long now, since we started.
How do you measure the success of Global Poverty Project so far?
I mean, we've got a long way to go. We're a young organisation. We were founded in September 2008. So far, I think our biggest successes was playing a key role in raising $118 million last year for polio eradication when we convinced the government of Australia, Nigeria, Canada and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to chip in $118 million and make that pledge on the back of our concert we ran with John Legend in Perth at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. We also, the Live Below the Line campaign has been enormously successful, and 1.4 billion reasons has been seen by 110,000 people around the world. So obviously we're achieving some results, but I'm not even vaguely happy with how far. I want to grow this organisation to really change the world. So we're at the cusp. I think this year is a big inflection point. We're planning a huge concert in New York City later this year in partnership with Rotary. And this whole concert is going to be focused around, the pinnacle of it is going to be around polio eradication. And so we're going to draw together 60,000 people, some of the most amazing musicians and artists from around the world. It's going to be broadcast all around the world. So if you want to organise a live stream here in Bangkok, go for it. That'd be wonderful. But it's going to be broadcast, and we're hoping to have over 1 billion people involved in the campaign this year.
Cool. So, What would you tell people why they should care or help other people who might live halfway across the globe when they themselves might have their own problems to worry about?
Sure. Well, I think that there's 2 reasons why you should care. Firstly, because you're a human being and you have a heart that beats, and you should care out of the simple moral obligation to care. But even if moral obligation isn't enough for you and you're like, why should I really care? Well, I've got to say that it's actually in your self-interest to care about global poverty. Why? Because polio anywhere is a threat to people everywhere. And we saw last year with the outbreak of polio from Pakistan spread into China overnight. All of a sudden people in China contracted the disease, and it's incurable. So even if people here in Thailand don't care because they're benevolent, they can still care because it's actually in our self-interest. Global public health is something that affects all of us.
For you personally, what do you get out of doing all this, putting your effort into humanitarian work?
It's the most rewarding work in the whole world. I mean, I get to wake up every day and actually think, how can I use my creativity to change the world? It's better than any job in the whole world, because it's not a job, it's incredible. I love it more than anything, because I literally wake up and I get to say, how can our organisation and the partners that we work with have a greater impact today to end extreme poverty.
Do you plan to do this for the rest of your life?
Absolutely. Until extreme poverty is ended.
We might not be a full-time humanitarian like Hugh, but we can still help by discussing this issue with friends, by donating, or by volunteering with organizations of your choice. As Mandela said, poverty is man-made and can be overcome and eradicated by human beings. See you next week. สวัสดีค่ะ